Hello, hello. I'm Jamie Cheese Slice. I am the. I, gosh, I keep forgetting to do that for some reason. The music just is on loop, and I don't like that. Anyway, hi, I'm Jamie Chase Slice. I am the engineer producer of Uncontrolled Opposition, and we have a good show for you today to talk about Julian Assange and the action for the Assange movement that occurred before he finally did get released from prison under not the best circumstances, but at least he was released from prison. Anyway, they're going to talk about some of the infiltration that was going along with that movement. But before we get to that, let me go ahead and bring on Gloria and Jeremy, who are our hosts for today of Uncontrolled Opposition. And hello, guys.
Hey, Jamie.
So let's go ahead and bring on our guests, and then I'll hand it over to Gloria, and we'll get the show started because we're going to be recording an hour for the radio, but you get to watch us live as we do that recording. So here is our guest, Paula and Misty Winston. Well, man, I am having issues today. I need a new mouse. My mouse is dead. All right, Gloria, it's you're on
Paula.
deck.
Hi, Misty.
How you guys doing? Let's get started. Gloria, take it away.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to Uncontrolled Opposition, where together we battle mind wars with truth strikes. I'm Gloria Guillo, an investigative journalist, and I'm here with my co-host, Professor Jeremy Kuzmarov, managing editor of Covert Action magazine. Our producer and engineer is Jamie Cheeselice. Today's guests are Paula Iasella and Misty Winston. They are here to tell us about their experiences as activists defending the rights of Julian Assange against a national organization allegedly set up to protect him. The opinions you hear are ours and that of our guests, not those of WBAI, the Pacifica Foundation, or the Progressive Radio Network. This content is intended for informational and educational purposes only and should not be interpreted as professional or legal advice. Listeners are encouraged to form their own opinions. For those who have been living under a rock or newly coming of age, Julian is a premier journalist and publisher that has been unjustly and inhumanely imprisoned for telling the truth about activities undertaken by our government against us and others. In our crosshairs today is Assange Defense, which is billed as a project of the Courage Foundation. Paula Iasella is a former New York City Broadway costume designer and co-organizer of the Boston Area's Assange Defense. Misty Winston is an activist and well-known talk show host in alt media. In the 1960s, US intelligence agencies learned that silencing dissent outright created martyrs. A subtler tactic emerged: infiltration and control. Rather than crushing opposition, it was reshaped from within. The FBI's COINTEL program ran from 1956 to 71. It targeted civil rights leaders, anti-war activists, and independent journalists. Files later released under the Freedom of Information Act showed tactics including planted informants, forged letters, rumor campaigns, and internal conflicts designed to neutralize movements before they grew influential. The CIA followed with Operation Chaos, monitoring Americans involved in anti-war or foreign policy criticism, despite its charter prohibiting domestic operations. Similar infiltrations patterns appeared in local police intelligence units that feed data to federal agencies. These programs ended on paper, but the methods evolved. By the 1980s, community outreach and counter-extremism budgets replaced overt counterintelligence lines. By 2013, the disclosed U.S. intelligence budget exceeded $52 billion, with the CIA and NSA receiving the largest shares. Classified funding and black ops adds billions more. The result is an enormous apparatus capable not only of surveillance, but of narrative management and quiet disruption. This process is called controlled opposition. We talk about this a lot. It involves movements that appear independent, but are infiltrated, influenced, or steered, so they pose no real threat and become merely a pressure valve for activists to release their angst and spin their wheels. Control can take several forms: insertion of agents or contractors who redirect or block progress; funding influence, where grants or sponsors quietly define acceptable boundaries; information warfare, where media channels amplify compliant figures while discrediting those who refuse direction. Jeremy's article, published in the UNS Review, involves Assange Defense and the grassroots efforts to free Julian Assange. In it, Paula identified a communications operative whose behavior, red baiting, internal obstruction, personal attacks, mirrored classic disruption tactics. Whether or not he acted under official instructions is irrelevant, as the pattern fits a long historical model: create internal division, delay initiatives, and erode credibility from within. Controlled opposition ensures dissent exists, but only within boundaries. It keeps people busy reacting to personalities instead of confronting institutions. It replaces radical analysis with managed activism, slogans, not structures, and lots of organization promotion. Many people resist believing this system exists. That resistance often comes from cognitive dissonance, the discomfort of realizing trusted movements or leaders may be compromised. Rather than confront that, people dismiss the possibility or silence their own intuition. They start doubting their own judgment. Even when warning signs appear, the nice but ineffective leader who speaks well unites everyone emotionally, but never allows the group to act decisively or expose power directly. This archetype is not accidental. It's a recurring feature of infiltration strategy. Infiltration is no longer limited to covert agents. Contracted PR firms, data mining platforms, and online moderation teams now perform similar functions, steering attention and tone, with budgets shielded by classification and national security exemptions. Accountability is minimal. The principle is consistent: control perception, manage opposition, and maintain the illusion of pluralism. From COINTELPRO to chaos to the Assange movement, the machinery of influence has shifted form, but not purpose. It ensures that opposition remains visible, but never effective. Thank you. To start off, Paula, please tell our audience about your involvement in Assange Defense and walk us through your report. Misty, please chime in as inspired, since you are a key person in this struggle to defend Julian Assange.
Yeah, thank you, Gloria. And thank you for that introduction. I did prepare an overview because there's a lot of things and I don't have it on the top of my head. So I've prepared something, but last night I was thinking that we wouldn't be here today without Jeremy having written his article and on my report, and without the UNS Review publishing it last month. And I'm very grateful for that, because it has given me an opportunity to finally break a year-long silence on the report. Like I said, I was one of 3 activists who discovered a disruptor within the US Assange Defense Organization in 2022. I wrote up what happened in a report last year. In July, when an Assange Defense associate stepped in to suppress Jeremy's article, the need to amplify it became very, very clear. The article, Jeremy's article, is an excellent overview of my report. It ties, like you said, to the long history of Democrat provocateurs infiltrating progressive movements. And along with the AD report, I published a short Substack summary of the report. Both are linked to in Jeremy's article. And all this information is pinned to my Twitter timeline, Paula Iasella at P. Lucille 54. I want to make note that the other activists knew I was writing this report, but they did not participate in it in any way. And I actually gave them pseudonyms in the report. That said, Misty Winston came forward as one of the involved activists in a recent tweet. Preparing for today's program, I realized that some listeners may not know a lot about Julian Assange, and I thought it might help to summarize his story so people can imagine why a whole lot of us globally spent so many years supporting his work, and conversely, why infiltration was commonplace around support for Assange. And I think it's important to understand why AD leadership deceiving activists is especially egregious in a movement that is all about truth and transparency. As I stated in Jeremy's article, activists deserve answers when they experience dysfunction, malfeasance, and a lack of transparency in the organizations that they work within. Okay, to summarize, in 2006, Julian Assange, an Australian, founded WikiLeaks, a whistleblower platform. He was its editor-in-chief until 2018. Assange believed in the people's right to know and the importance of privacy for the individuals and transparency for the powerful. With factual leaked documents, WikiLeaks felt that citizens were empowered to bring corrupt institutions to justice. In 2010, whistleblower Chelsea Manning leaked nearly 750,000 classified and unclassified military and diplomatic documents to WikiLeaks, and she served time in prison for that. But the vindictive US government, with CIA bad guy Mike Pompeo taking the lead, used the Espionage Act to prosecute journalists too. This was a first of its kind prosecution in US history. So powerful governments targeted WikiLeaks, the US, UK, Sweden. They conspired to pin a trumped up sexual assault allegations on Assange, forcing him to enter the London Ecuadorian embassy and claim political asylum, fearing that Sweden would extradite him to the United States. And considering the millions that government spent to keep Assange in that embassy, to surveil him around the clock, and the years of paid legal power to build a case against him, it wasn't too far-fetched when early on in my work with Assange Defense, and a sincere activist asked me, why would the only U.S. organizing to free Assange not be infiltrated? So I was mostly politically asleep during the early years of WikiLeaks. I woke up in 2016 when WikiLeaks published the DNC leaks. The Democrats refused to own their mistakes for losing to Trump. Dossier. They cooked up the Steele dossier, which was all about Russian collusion, which became known as Russiagate. The DNC filed a lawsuit against the Trump campaign, WikiLeaks, and Assange, claiming that they of Russia. And it's important to know, because God knows that the media didn't cover it, that a federal judge dismissed the lawsuit in July.
We seem to be having some communication issues. Misty, would you like
Misty
to
wants to step
fill-
in.
Yeah, I can
fill the
jump-
void there?
I can. Yeah, I can. I mean, obviously, I don't have what Paula was detailing there in front of me, but I can kind of, glean from where all
she's
that stuff
going.
comes from. So the 2016 DNC leaks, I'm sure many people remember that was kind of a blockbuster piece of the 2016 election and exposed a great deal of corruption in the Democratic Party, including hamstringing Bernie Sanders' campaign. So WikiLeaks revealed a great deal of information about that, including a lot of collusion with media, mainstream media figures with the Democratic Party, and more specifically, the Hillary Clinton campaign. That obviously caused a great deal of uproar. Oh, do we have you back? Are you back?
So
Paula?
sorry.
Okay, go ahead. I was trying to fill in for you.
No, that's fine. I mean, the internet has been really crazy ever since I logged in. So
This happens often on our shows.
Yeah, I can imagine. So I was up to Russiagate. So
Yes.
I don't know what she covered, but the case against Assange, WikiLeaks, and the Trump campaign was dismissed, they ruled that even if materials were obtained illegally, that they were still protected by the First Amendment. So it's weirdly coincidental that my work in the Free Assange movement began and ended with a Russiagate story. We would never have uncovered a disruptor had an AD employee not red-baited Misty in an organizing meeting. And here's where the story begins. So in September 2022, while we were super busy organizing for the US sister action to Stella Assange's Hands Around Parliament, AD's director, Nathan Fuller, in a meeting that I had called and was moderating, allowed his assistant at the top of the meeting, Mike Bergmeyer, to refer to the lead organizer, Misty Winston, as a Russia lover. And honestly, it just shocked me. I don't remember the exact words that I said that I used to tell him that red baiting was unacceptable. Misty was not present at that meeting to defend herself. I remember thinking that Nathan's silence felt like he and Bergmeyer had set me up, where Fuller was playing the silent good cop and Bergmeyer playing the red baiting bad cop, with the purpose of discrediting Misty as an organizer and possibly maybe even the October 8th event itself. So Fuller sent Bergmeyer to our Misty's weekly organizing meetings, and I insisted that Bergmeyer first apologize to Misty, but he refused. And the first meeting that Bergmeyer attended, Misty identified him as Discourse Doctor, a troll account on Twitter, but she didn't divulge this during the meeting, and she shared this with me afterwards. And researching Bergmeyer took me into this Twitter underworld where I verified that 2 anonymous accounts belonged to Bergmeyer, and Discourse Doctor being the main one. Fuller denied knowing about Bergmeyer's social media alter ego, despite following the Discourse Doctor account on Twitter. And we investigated Bergmeyer for months and gave our documentation to Fuller, who was to deliver our findings to Bergmeyer's employer. And eventually, he was discharged from Assange Defense. In the meantime, Fuller proceeded to run
Just for our audience, how long did that take for him to be removed from when you identified it?
We identified him. We had an intermediary working between the activists and Nathan. And so it was going back and forth. So it started in September when I was
just
collecting.
Approximately like 6 months it took, 8 months, a year,
September,
2 years.
October, November. I'm going to say it took 4 months. I think he was finally removed sometime in January. But you have to remember, he was removed from our committee, but then his employer kept him on. So they siloed him. They put him in a different place in their office to work on another similar Assange defense. So it wasn't satisfactory to me, and I told them that this is not satisfactory. He's not being fired. Why are they keeping him on? And so some other group is going to get this infiltrator. But at that time, you have to remember, we were busy. We were busy activists. I was spending my own personal time researching all this, but carrying on with the same, activism. And so there was a lot to this. I mean, there was a lot to this. This is why the report is 65 pages, because I tried to cover everything. But even then, again, I'm thinking of all the things that happened that I didn't even document, that in some ways were, a bigger
and there's
deal.
a lot that we can't prove. Like there's many other accounts that I suspect that he was involved with, especially in terms of attacking me personally on Twitter. I get a great deal of trolls. It's something I'm quite used to, but there are numerous accounts that I very strongly suspect that this guy was running, but I can't prove it. So we were able to specifically identify the 2 that Paula mentioned, but there are many more that I am highly suspicious that he was involved in.
I always say, if it feels like disruption, it is. That's the only thing you can go by. And we're just left to speculate. And anyway, so Fuller went on with the meetings like business as usual. No acknowledgement of what happened or apologies for lying to the activists. And number one, screen share. Jamie, please. So we compiled a list of questions. There's about a dozen questions for Fuller to answer in order for us to regain our trust in him and the Assange Defense Organization. But he replied that our questions were not applicable. You know, some questions like, does Mike have access to the Courage Foundation email and social media accounts? If Nathan was aware of Mike's alter ego, as it certainly appears he was, and lied to us, Nathan needs to admit that and explain why he did so. Nathan needs to be reminded that we need to be able to trust him. If we have been played, he needs to own up, explain why it was done, and promise to stop. If he can't give us explanations, he will lose our trust, and that will destroy Assange Defense, something none of us want. So I wrote in my Substack summary, a lack of transparency breeds a lack of trust. A clear response to the written questions and statements that the activist sent to Nathan would have gone far in regaining our trust, but went unanswered. It appeared Nathan felt that he owed the activist nothing, no answers, no apologies. Thanks, Jamie, for that. So the three activists instinctively understood that we had no choice but to keep AD's wrongdoing secret for fear of it disrupting the global Free Assange movement. We were silent for more than 2 years. After Assange was freed in June 2024, something triggered me to write the report, and I reached out to my Fleur, who productions on Twitter and Substack, to help me structure and add context to the report's material. And I would like to.
Oh,
okay, Misty, I think we'll
lost
need
her
you to
again.
step in now.
So I just want to make clear before we get too much further into the weeds here that I was never a part of Assange Defense. I'm not a joiner, really. I kind of like to do my own thing. I don't like organized activist efforts. I feel like there's too much nitpicking and red tape, and you have to ask permission for things, and you have to get things approved by boards and all of that stuff. And it's just not my jam. So I was very much, I was the host and I guess lead organizer for the group called Action for Assange. We weren't really a group, though. It was just a bunch of like plucky activists just doing whatever we could. So I was not ever an official member of Assange Defense. I worked with them tangentially over the course of the years on various different projects. For example, I helped to table at the Roger Waters concerts. That's something that they organized, but because I'm in Ohio, they asked me to do the 2 Ohio dates, things like that. I worked with them kind of on the periphery several times throughout the years, but I helped to organize and host the Home Run for Julian tour. We hosted an event here in Columbus. I also helped to organize the final stop in Washington, D.C. with Paula. But I was never an official member of Assange Defense. So that I just want to make sure that that's clear before we get too much further. But this was an issue that, as Paula said, we identified it and were aware of since middle of 2022, right before a massive organizing event, which for those who aren't aware, Stella, along with the UK activists, organized the Hands Around Parliament, where they were trying to get enough people to surround Parliament and hold hands as like a show of solidarity for Julian Assange. Multiple sort of sister events popped up across the globe. Ours that we did, we wanted to do the Department of Justice, obviously. We called it the Hands Off Julian event. When I saw the UK event pop up, I saw the Australia event pop up. I was hoping somebody in the States was going to do something. I hadn't heard anything. So I kind of took it upon myself to say, okay, I'm just going to start it. So I started organizing the event. I started contacting the activists that I have great relationships with, Paula included, Denver, Tulsa, all of the amazing people that I've worked with over the course of the years. And we started organizing that event. And all of this started to get messy right before that event, which is a tried and true tactic of infiltrators. When you have a major event, they want to cause as much division, chaos, and distraction as possible. And I just want to,
if I may interrupt just for a second,
please.
And then the other thing is that it seems, from what I know about you, and you can talk a little bit about it, that you're a big social influencer. You've got a big audience. And
I hate that term, but okay.
But you know,
like I'm just a
you're an
loudmouth
activist.
chick from Ohio with a lot of opinions.
You're an activist first,
yes.
but you also have the ability to reach people and communicate with them.
That's fair.
And
yes.
to move them.
Yes.
You know, through what you say and do.
And we've exploited my ability to do that throughout the course of the years that we were working on the Assange case, for sure.
So you're a threat more so than someone else. So in my opinion, so I can understand why you would be a target more than, let's say, someone else.
Yeah.
Because
I was certainly a target.
They could knock you out.
Yeah.
That would give them more than if they knocked out someone who's, you know, doesn't really have an audience, doesn't really have, you know, a lot of people that tune into them. Thank you.
I would say that's probably fair to say. I always like to point out that I, by no means whatsoever, was the hardest working Assange activist. I'm very loud. For sure. And I think I get a lot of attention that way. And a lot of people associate me with the Assange movement because of that. But people like Paula, people like Kendra in Denver, people like Halo in Tulsa, people like Daniel DeCeter in North Carolina. There are so many people. I mean, the UK, don't even get me started on the UK people. I love them tremendously. There are people who literally put everything that they had into the Assange. And I'm not diminishing my own work. Obviously, I did put a lot of time, energy, and effort into it. I'm just the loudest one, though. So that's really all but you are correct in the fact that I do happen to have a relatively large social media presence that does make me quite the target. And I was, for sure. So, okay, Paula, you're back. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, you just stated some things that are in my little overview. And the reason it's important for me to get through the overview is because I'm afraid that a lot of people might not read the report. And there's a lot of information in the report. And I want it to speak for itself. It's called an Assange Defense Debrief and a Call for Transparency and Accountability. And this report is told in 3 parts. And I'm just going to pick out a few things in part 1 and part 2. Part 1 outlines the U.S. key players and timeline. We included WikiLeaks editor-in-chief Kristen Hrafnson's speech in 2020 because it was important to, you know, what we were trying to put across in the report, where he said, "This is not about left or right politics. We can unite on this. It's a dark force versus us who want justice, transparency, accountability, and truth." And it's worth pointing out that the US Assange Defense Project was officially launched September 5th, 2020. This was 17 months after Assange's arrest and imprisonment in the Supermax prison. And it's important to mention that the report documents some of the precursors to Assange Defense, such as Susie Dawson and Elizabeth Leah Voss, who organized a 10-hour online Reconnect Julian vigil in March 2018 when Ecuador cut off Assange's internet. And then they went on to organize Unity for J. I don't know what that is. Thank you. So these people were really important for organizing international activists. And they had weekly vigils hosting important left and right voices. Unlike AD, Unity for J understood that Assange would be freed only if we all unified under press freedom and the First Amendment. And some of part 2 orbits around the July 1st Assange is Free webinar that was hosted by Defending Rights and Dissent and Assange Defense. Matt Ho, moderating, asked Nathan, how did all the work of these journalists tie into the work of the activists? Fuller's answer was so disappointing on 2 levels. He was 4 minutes in before he even mentioned the activists. He talked about the Courage Foundation and AD's decision to focus on and debunk various aspects of the Russiagate smear. And having said this, he revealed that there was a serious problem inside AD because he had allowed his assistant, Bergmeyer, to use red-baiting remarks to discredit an activist. And number 2, Jamie, please. So this was the letter that I sent to recipients and to the advisor. They were altered a little bit, but this wasn't published anywhere. I'm showing it here just just to make it public, that the letter that I sent out to these people, it was non-threatening and it was written in good faith. It was where I asked them to get involved and make constructive changes. And I hope that the recipient's feedback can assist Assange Defense in this process that I listed. And I also said, I said that it was confidential. The report was confidential. And so you can leave it up, Jamie. When I finished the report in September 2024, I sent it to two advisory board members, and one expressed concern for me, warning me that I could be marginalized within my own progressive circles. And he added, "This is a case study of activists laboring energetically and well within an organization like AD, where their work was not encouraged, sometimes discouraged, ignored, or impeded." In October, I sent the report as confidential to 6 recipients. It's worth noting that I was careful about keeping the report confidential. The hope was that there'd be a conversation within the AD circle about the issue, and that it would be resolved internally and not circulated in the general public as we're doing right now. I gave them over 3 months to have an honest discussion about the report, but they chose to ignore the report. And I discovered that little power mimics big power, that they protect their own and they hide behind impunity. And to be clear, not one recipient responded to the actual content of the report. They followed the usual whistleblower playbook, which is ignore, trivialize, smear, remain silent, and lastly, possibly punish. Number 3, Jamie. Thank you. And this one, in my Substack article, I summarized the report, and it concludes with a section that serves as a cautionary tale for activists when working within an organization like AD. So I have 6 things listed. What is the organization's level of transparency? Is there a pattern of activist campaigns being arbitrarily stonewalled? Does the organization encourage and promote activism from diverse political perspectives? How does the organization ensure? Because depending on the campaign focus, it's really possible that there are federal agents in the committee. Number 5, does the organization have a mechanism in place to safely address and resolve grievances? And 6, would working solely with a few trusted activists accomplish more than within an organization that's working against you? So thank you, Jamie. And then getting close to conclusion here.
Paula, before we move forward, can you redo 3, 4, and 5 again, because you were breaking up as you were talking about those?
Okay.
And I need to get a clean take on that for the radio.
Okay.
Let's start with 3, 4, and 5.
All right. Number 3, does the organization encourage and promote activism from diverse political perspectives? Number 4, how does the organization assure security? Depending on the org's mission and campaign focus, it's entirely possible, even likely, for there to be federal agents in the committee. Number 5, does the organization have a mechanism in place to safely address and resolve grievances? Okay, is that good?
Okay, that's great. Continue. Yeah, that's great.
Okay, and so I'm just getting close to the end here, but having had 3 years to digest the 2022 events, and because none of my questions were answered, that we really are left to speculate, and that's as close as we're going to get to the truth. And I have concluded that Misty Winston was one of the main targets of Fuller and Bergmeyer's bizarre collusion using anonymous accounts that targeted and surveilled activists. Misty, with her 30,000 plus followers then, 155,000 now, amplified the activist campaigns and fundraisers, and she was hugely successful uniting the right and left-leaning activists to free Julian. The political elite are threatened by us uniting. NGOs operate and depend on propping up the two-party system. Our uniting is viewed as a problem. I want to mention Denver, who was a big one of the top organizers in the US to free Julian, and in Denver Action to Free Assange, in Jeremy's article, echoed this by stating, AD leadership and the committee largely seemed to function as an exclusive left-leaning partisan group which did not align with how the organization presented itself, nor Denver's belief that it would take a unified front to free Assange. Halo Benson, a longtime WikiLeaks activist, works with her national network of activists uniting the right and left to send letters to Congress on important issues. She stated in Jeremy's article, I stopped working with AD when I realized we had different goals. Their interest was growing Assange defense, mine was to free Julian. So in conclusion, the fact that Fuller lied to protect Bergmeyer is of central importance to this entire report. How could protecting Bergmeyer in any way further the goal of Assange defense, which was helping to set Assange free? The activists did not create these issues. The issues were designed to work against us. AD's lack of transparency, its lack of support for direct action, its exclusion of right-leaning activists ultimately led to sabotaging the worthwhile efforts of US activists and diminished the urgency needed to free Assange. AD's failure to address these issues makes for an organization without accountability. And some of us couldn't help but think that Assange may have been freed sooner had AD leadership grown a true grassroots national organization.
Misty, could you talk a little bit about why we are prohibited from uniting the left and the right, in your words?
Oh, that's the thing that they fear the most. And that's something that I myself sort of came around to. Not that I've ever really been a left versus right kind of a person. I've always sort of been a floater, I guess you could say. But when in my organizing for Julian, I realized the unbelievable importance and benefit to bringing people from both sides to this issue, because it is something that we should so very easily agree on and something we can so easily rally around as a cause. The right to free speech, the right to press freedom are central to our ability to really fight for anything moving forward. So I think that's why they don't want the right and the left, to answer your question. That's why they don't want the right and the left coming together, because we are so much more powerful together. We become so much louder, so much more forceful when we have people from across the political spectrum putting aside our differences to fight for a cause that we all agree on. And I think that is really the central issue on that, is they really, and I really put a tremendous amount of time and energy and concentration into actively seeking out people from both sides of the spectrum to try to bring them into this issue. And it was, as Paula said, not to toot my own horn, but it was very effective. I was very effective in being able to bring in libertarians and conservatives and people, who are more left-leaning, some liberals, things like that. So, probably a great deal of the reason why I was targeted. But yeah, I think that's really the key issue, is they know that we're more powerful together.
Absolutely.
There seems
go ahead, Gloria.
There seems to be some kind of a protection against, using Assange Defense, the Courage Foundation, and the word infiltration, because I've been using MailChimp for Green Renaissance Sovereign Rights Movement and for Uncontrolled Opposition. And so many of our topics have CIA in the headlines and all kinds of stuff. And all of a sudden, I put in Assange Defense and the word infiltration, and it wouldn't let me send it out, and it booted me from MailChimp. So, right now I'm looking for a new internet provider for, a mail service. But, when all of a sudden something is, verboten and forbidden, you think maybe you're onto something, because we've noticed a lot on our show on Uncontrolled Opposition. A lot of our guests are controversial, and their internet's working perfectly until they log on to tell us what's going on. And then the minute they log on, all of a sudden there's internet problems. It was so bad for one of our guests, Peter Osborne, when he was talking about the octopus murders, that he said, look, let me just send you a Zoom link, and then we'll put you on right away, and I'll give you a recorded show. And even though, the recorded shows actually have less, viewership and less of an audience, it's the only way that we could proceed, because this topic of, the octopus and the relationship between banking and software and the CIA and drug running and theft of gold. I mean, it just, he can't get a word in. So, don't be concerned. This happens often. And I guess, as activists,
We're used to it.
We have to just let it
I'm
roll
very
off our
used to it,
shoulders.
yeah.
And we also, I wanted to hear you say what you said, Misty, because Jeremy and I talk very often about this segregation between the left and the right, and how devastating it is for accomplishing, goals that we all share as human beings. The things that we're looking for and that we're fighting for aren't left or right issues. They're humane issues. They're humanitarian issues.
And I think that's why this is so important to talk about, because this is one of the key ways that they keep people divided. And I think that is, they've been very effective in that. And I think that's why we need to discuss it more, and why we need to be more open about it, because there are issues that we absolutely agree on. And if we can manage to put aside, and I mean, Chris Hedges has said it, numerous people have said it. I mean, there are no permanent enemies. There's only, there's no permanent enemies, no permanent allies. And I'm selfish. I want to get stuff done. And so if that means that I have to work with people who I may not agree with all the time, clutch my pearls, can't imagine it. That's a very bizarre thing, that people are so willing to discard a whole group of people or a whole subset of the population because you might disagree with them on abortion or immigration or whatever. The key for us was to get Julian Assange out of prison. And I was willing to work with just about anybody in order to make that happen. That made me a controversial figure. I got a lot of heat for that over the years, but I feel like that was a very common sense position to take. If your goal is actually to get Assange out of prison, that should be something that you're willing to do. And Assange Defense very clearly did not have any interest in that whatsoever. And in fact, when we were organizing the October 8th event that we've been speaking about, there was a lot of pushback when I was trying to bring in libertarian speakers and things like that. That was something that they were very hesitant about allowing. They really wanted to stick to like the center left sort of segment of the political spectrum. And that is just a completely ineffective and self-sabotaging tactic to take. So it was not something that I was willing to really budge on. And none of us were really.
Yeah, and if I could jump in, I got a couple questions, but on these points, I agree. It reminds me that there was Ukraine, Rage Against the War Machine. And, it's often the groups on the left, I find. The right groups and libertarians have no problem working with people on the left. It's the left groups. And they may be the ones, as Gloria and I have talked about, targeted for the infiltration. And there was a similar issue, at the Rage Against the War Machine rally that I attended against the Ukraine war. And there were some people on the left who were trying to smear some of the speakers. They claimed one guy was a racist, and I looked him up and I saw nothing racist that he said. And that rally was an effort to bring right and left together against, the war machine and the Ukraine conflict. Hopefully this episode, thank you so much for speaking out, because this raises awareness about this. And that is how the deep state operate. It's a strategy of divide and conquer the American public, turn them against each other instead of uniting when really they have much in common against a common class enemy, is what we're talking about here, a ruling oligarchy that control the wealth of the country and rule through a divide and rule strategy, similar to in foreign policy and colonialism. That's how colonial powers operate. And my question was, two things. One is, I was involved in a little bit in the Tulsa group and just attending some of the events. And, there was a movie screening of Ithaca, and I think it was sabotage because Halo's efforts were sabotaged and the movie was half empty. When there are a lot of people, and Tulsa's a good case because it's a city, it's a more right-leaning city, but there are a lot of libertarians, and there's also kind of counterculture community. So there is a huge population that was supportive of Julian Assange. So an event like that could have attracted a huge following of kind of disparate political views, but would be united in wanting Assange's freedom. But the theater was half empty. I think there were only like 10 people because the advertising got sabotaged. So I wonder if you can just discuss that. I mean, you're talking about one facet, but this seems to be a wide phenomenon where they're actually, people maybe covertly, sabotaging events, so it's much less effective. And then and if you can comment on that. And my second question relates to the Erickson Group. The report you issued raises questions about who are the Erickson Group and who is the Courage Foundation. And we know historically that's how the CIA intelligence agencies operate, through foundations, through corporations that end up involved with these groups. So what have you learned about those two? That could be for either Misty or Paula, the Erickson Group and the Courage Foundation. So
I think
guess
that aspect would probably be more of a Paula question, but I think she just lost her internet again.
Yeah. And are
so
you
I guess
aware of this happening where events were sabotaged and the
Yes.
promotion was not good? And yeah.
I mean, I think that we all suspected it. I think if you speak to any Assange activists in the United States in particular, I can't speak to everybody else, but just as it relates to Assange Defense, there were numerous times where, Halo tried to get a bunch of T-shirts for an event and they wouldn't give her the T-shirts. And, we tried to get flyers printed to hand out or whatever it was. And there was always just a ton of dragging of the feet and constant having to send repeated emails trying to get things done, trying to get things taken care of. This is exactly why I don't like working in groups. It's not always this bad. But generally, when you have a group like this, that's more sort of official, you have to go to the board and get things approved and all of that stuff. And that's just not really my thing. I just want to get it done. But I think that I've heard numerous people who worked with Assange Defense on events over the course of the years, talking about, how it was so difficult to get them to move on anything, whether it was getting shirts for an event or flyers printed or videos published or whatever it was always, moving through molasses. They just never wanted to actually get anything done. They were very ineffective and very slow. And I think that, as we all know, that is a key red flag of CIA infiltration, is where they try to desperately slow down your efforts. And I think that was readily apparent across the board with many people that I've spoken to over the course of the years.
Thanks. Yeah. And maybe Paula, if you want to say something related, or if you know much about the Erickson Foundation or Courage, Erickson Group and Courage Foundation, or perhaps that's something people would have to do more research and muckraking.
Yeah, I don't really know. And I do know that now I'm very suspicious. It's like, because there's no way to really know, but I mean, think about it. If the Democrats are involved in some kind of infiltration operation, then they're going to use marketing groups that are, that help grassroots, progressive movements get their message out. It's a marketing campaign of posters and videos and interviews and all that. So yeah, it's a great place where it could be infiltrated, because they're right there right in the middle of the progressive movements. And yeah, Jeremy, I missed a lot that you were talking about because everybody's connection was going bad. I heard you say something about Ithaca, so we missed you talking about all that. And I don't know if you want to repeat that or...
Well, just briefly, and Misty answered the question. It was just about, broader problem in the organization that raised red flags, as far as the inefficiency of organizing or potential sabotage of events. Because we had an event where I live in Tulsa where the advertising for a movie screening got sabotaged and the movie was almost empty because of that. And so I was asking if you guys had other experiences or how widespread that was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was always really difficult to get anything accomplished, at least as far as Assange Defense goes. It was, like I said, always kind of like moving through molasses. So, and that's, I think most activists would agree that that's a fairly common problem. I think, Paula, it's you, my love. Is anybody else having internet issues? I'm getting you guys loud and clear.
Connections are so bad.
Yeah. Go ahead, Gloria. Yeah, and then there's the question of the fallout. I mean, I don't know. You know, report whether has there been a fallout against you guys, and how do you? What are your strategy? You know, having gone through this experience, what advice? You know, what lessons can we learn from this experience, and how can activist groups ward off against these infiltrators in the future?
Well, that's tough. I don't know that there's any real way to ward off infiltrators entirely, because you can never really quite be sure, and you don't want to, block people out who could be effective, and all of that stuff. So you just have to be very aware. You have to head on a swivel, just pay very close attention, speak to people that you actually do trust. We're very lucky in that. There is a small group of us, the Halos, the Kendras, the Paulas, the Andrews. We had a group of core people that we have implicit trust in each other, and we'd work together, and we, kind of knew what each other were about. And so when this stuff started happening, we had like a group to lean on. In particular, I had a group to lean on, and I really just want to give a tremendous amount of credit to Paula, because it's not often that you will find somebody who will fight for you when you're not in the room. And she immediately took action, immediately had my back, immediately stood up for me. And I can't tell her how much I appreciate that. That is a rare thing to find. So, but we had that core group of people. And I think that there's always going to be infiltration if you're doing work like this. If you're an activist really in any form, there's always going to be that threat. So you really just have to educate yourself about what that looks like, what that can look like, and then just be hyper aware and be skeptical. Find people that you can trust, have conversations if you think something looks a little bit off, or and just be ready to isolate people if they need to be sort of shoved out of the group, or distance yourself from them in whatever way that you need to. But this was tough. I've been an activist for most of my adult life. This was certainly the most intense situation I've experienced, I think, because it was kind of personal attacks on me, and having that come at me, and then not wanting to address it publicly and not wanting to defend myself publicly because I didn't want it to negatively impact Julian Assange. That was tough, because I am somebody that likes to defend myself. I like to stand up for myself. I like to stand up for my friends. So being in that position was very strange, because I knew that addressing it publicly would be playing exactly into their hands. It would cause more division. It would cause more chaos. It would cause more drama. And that's not something that we wanted. So we very much dealt with it, like I said, with the core group of people that we really had that already built trust. And they were very supportive of me, and, letting me express my frustrations, and, having my back. And they would defend me on Twitter when they would see these types of things being said about me and stuff like that. But that was a really interesting time. It's not fun. I won't lie to people. If you get targeted in that way, it sucked. Like it was very emotionally draining. But you just if you have that core group of people that you can trust, and that you can depend on, just lean on them, and just keep focused on, what the end goal is, and keep the main thing.
Misty?
Yes, ma'am.
I was hoping that you would talk a little bit about how that all what you went through. I never did hear about what happened to you. I know that you were doing a letter campaign with Stella. It was a great letter campaign. And then was that part of them targeting you, that all of a sudden they cut you off from key people?
Yeah,
And
the official Assange people shut me out entirely.
Yeah.
And I understand. I am, again, like I said, I'm loud. My approach is controversial. There are some people that don't like how aggressive I am, and how I go at people who don't stand up for Julian Assange, and how I was kind of brash and loud about it. So I understand that maybe the family was a little hesitant to work super closely with me, but I had a good relationship with Gabriel. He had appeared on a couple of my shows. I had worked with them on the Home Run for Julian tour, both John and Gabriel. But once this stuff started happening, I was shut out entirely. Like it was, and that's fine. Again, it's not about me. It's not about any of that. And I was still willing to do the work. I didn't need like their permission or anything like that. So that was tough. I feel like My reputation was tarnished in some way. My character was called into question. There are a lot of people out there that still believe some of the really awful things that have been said about me. But I have thick skin, so it's fine. And in the end, Julian is out of prison, and that's really what the goal was. So yeah, it was hard, and I won't lie and say that it wasn't hard. It was definitely hard, but we accomplished what we set out to accomplish, and that's really all that matters.
Yeah, and I just want to say also, I'm sorry, but I just want to say that you know, when you say the family, but you have to remember that Nathan Fuller was representing the United States, and he was feeding a lot of information to the family in UK. So, you know, who to trust, who not to trust.
Yeah.
You know, so I feel like that they were relying on this director of the national organization.
Yeah, I don't fault them. I don't fault the family.
I mean? So I just want to be clear about that, because all I know is that you were doing a letter campaign with Stella, and it was successful, and she was feeding us things to concentrate topics in that, and then that all
stopped responding
but
to me.
That didn't happen. That there was a reason that happened, and I think it was the information being fed to them from the US. But it's speculation.
We've got to wrap it up from Jamie. So this is the opportunity. First of all, I'd like to thank you too. I know Jeremy did. Thank you for bringing this information, you know, to the public and to us. You know, we greatly appreciate it. It's important to get this out there. I'd like to give you the opportunity to just let our guests, let our audience know how they can follow your work. Can you please just briefly say where they can find you, Paula and Misty?
You want to go ahead, Paula? Oh, she may have frozen again. I'll go ahead.
Okay. Go ahead.
So I'm mostly on Twitter. I do host shows and stuff. I've taken a bit of a hiatus. I have some, my father-in-law's in ill health right now, so I have taken a little break from hosting anything. But mostly you can just find me on Twitter. It's at Sarcasm Stardust. I'm there all the time. So that's probably the easiest way to find me and get in contact with me.
And
Paula is, oh, there she is. Are you unfrozen?
Oh, that's so weird, because it looks like you were all frozen and you were about to be off the screen.
Okay, we only have a few seconds, Paula. Where can we find you?
Oh, P Lucille 54, but you can just put Paula Iasella on Facebook or Twitter. And they can email me at assangeboston@gmail.com. And yeah, thank you for having us on.
Yes.
Well, that wraps up our show for today. This is Uncontrolled Opposition. I'm Gloria Guillo, and I'm joined here by Professor Jeremy Kuzmarov. Remember to like and share our broadcast. Your kind support keeps us going. Please find us on Substack, Twitter, X, and Podbeam. Thanks for tuning in. Hope to see you next week. Folks, we're still on. We're still live. So you can finish up. You can finish up whatever it is that you wanted to say. Yeah. This is an opportunity.
Got any thoughts or anything? We're going to just run over a little bit until you guys got to go. I mean, Jeremy.
Yeah, I'm going to have to leave in about 3 minutes. So, but
I'm going to cut out so the screen.
But you can finish your thoughts.
Final things you wanted to say, Paula or Misty?
No, I think I got everything out. I mean,
okay.
Yeah, I really appreciate your article, Jeremy. I hope.
Yes, thank you.
I hope that your article is put in the information on YouTube, and that it was, you really summed up the report very, very well. I thought it was very, very well done.
Well, and you were really one of the only people. You were one of the only people that was willing to touch it. So,
well, it's an important story, and Gloria and I on this show, and the report was very thorough. I mean, it wasn't.
Paula's the rock star.
Because it was pretty easy for me to write. I mean, because your report was extremely thorough and very well done. So I just had to summarize it. I review the book. And I'm a historian, so I look for historical patterns. And sometimes I think, unfortunately, historians are unwilling to trace out. They're willing to acknowledge this happened 50 or 100 years ago. But when it comes to today, they kind of shut it off, or but it's important to document this today. We know it's happened before, and
Yeah.
the only way to break the pattern is to continuously expose it. So, and Gloria and I had reviewed this book. That was a great book, by a historian about this 19th century infiltrator in the labor movement, and his whole career was as an infiltrator. And finally, they called him out. The head of the Knights of Labor referred to him as it's in the original review I did. I forget the exact language, but they called him out in the worst term: a rat, a slime of humanity. And we've got to expose these people as a slime of humanity. And we face this in the alternative media, and it's a violation of the code of our profession. And I mean, the U.S. Constitution guarantees freedom of political association, freedom to say what you want, write what you want, and yet we have these gatekeepers and censors who infiltrate alternative media, and this has pissed off Gloria and I for a long time, and it's the same in these activist groups. So it's really important to expose these people, and maybe they'll apologize and realize they did wrong. A lot of these people become alcoholics and troubled in their soul because in many ways it's the worst of betrayal, what they're doing, and that has to be exposed. So
I can tell you not a single person has reached out to me, and in fact Mike sent me a long email calling Paula a liar, refusing to take accountability, threatening me, telling me that we have to keep this quiet so that we don't disrupt the movement when he's the disruptor, the typical gaslighting stuff. But Nathan never once reached out to me. Nobody from Assange Defense ever reached out to me on this issue, which I didn't expect them to. But
but it shows a low moral character, and at the end of the day, you have to be happy with yourself and do the right thing, and you guys are doing the right thing. So, and that's usually a bully resorts to smear when he's lost the argument. He just gets nasty. He shows his true nature and just gets nasty. So he's kind of exposing himself for what he really is, and that's an ugly.
Well, Mike had been very friendly to me previously. I mean, like I said, I'd worked with him on a couple of different projects. That's how I knew who he was. And so he had been which is again, very typical tactic. They befriend you and make you think you can trust them. And I mean, he had given me a ton of praise and, oh, you're you're so effective and yada, and then very quickly showed his true colors. So again, that's why I think you just have to kind of have your head on a swivel when you're an activist and just make sure that you're paying very close attention to the behavior of the people around you and act accordingly. As Paula said, if it feels like infiltration, it probably is.
Yeah, and also don't be intimidated. People, I think one lesson: don't be intimidated by the smear. They're going to attack somebody as a Russian lover, or I
got a whole bunch of stuff thrown at me.
Insults, and it's meaningless. And you've got, people shouldn't. Unfortunately, it does affect some people. Those kind of smears, they start taking it personally, and it destroys them, and they kind of back off their activism. And then the bullies are winning. So we've got to be strong and standing up to that kind of language. And
I think it's possible I just got louder.
Yeah.
Well, there's an expression that we had in the 60s and 70s. I'm a little older. And it's called either part of the problem or you're part of the solution. There's really no middle ground. So whether someone's an agent or a provocateur or a disruptor or an infiltrator is really irrelevant. If someone in your group is causing issues and disrupting what is going on and the progress, they need to be removed. And, people have to have the intestinal fortitude to do that. And people want to, just 1 second, people want to be nice in these groups. These are nice people. These are activists. These are people who are doing something not for themselves, but for the greater good, to save someone, to help something. So these are nice people. So they're such suckers. We're all suckers. We're like, well, I don't want to offend anyone. Oh, I don't want to, and that weakness is where we fail, and why Misty and Paula are so important. And I really admire you both. I mean, you do what you're going to do. You go out there and you take it on the chin, And, you don't go through life, oh, I want people to like me, which is terrible. You want to do the right thing in your heart and soul. And if people like you for that, great. If they don't like you for that, tough. But you do what's right in your soul. You have a moral compass. So I would say my older advice to young activists is have a moral compass and stick to it. And people will love you for it and people will hate you for it. And they're irrelevant. What's important is you, because you're going to die one day. And all you have is what you accomplished on this planet. And if what you've accomplished is, within your heart that you feel good about, then you are successful and you can die in peace. So, think of it in the long run. But you guys are exemplary, and it's such an honor to have you on the show. So thank you again.
It's kind of you to say.
Yeah. I want to. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, please.
I just want to add two short points. Yeah, that more people, because one of the sad things here is that not enough people spoke out to defend you guys, or not more were willing to speak out. So I think the lesson for listeners is that it's important, as Gloria was saying, when something looks bad and somebody's being a bully or clearly showing signs of infiltration, you've got to speak out, and people have to defend the person speaking out.
Can I just briefly cut in, because a lot of people did defend me, and I want to make that very, very, very clear. Not just Paula. For example, the UK crew, they would go to Trafalgar Square I think it was every Wednesday, and in the height of me getting bombarded with attacks on Twitter, at their event that they did, they wrote in chalk on the ground in front of the monument, "Respect Comrade Misty," and they took pictures of that and sent it to me. And I mean, that still brings tears to my eyes now just thinking about it. But I think that people who actually knew me were of course they were defending me, but it's difficult because because it was such a bombardment, there was a lot being thrown at me, and there are a lot of people who don't know me. And so a lot of people believe that stuff. But again, I was never in this to make friends. I was never in this to get famous. I was never in this to be popular. I was in it to get Julian Assange out of prison. And that was really the end of it. So, and I sleep well at night with the way I conducted myself. And that's all I really care about.
I also want to just do a little shout out to New York City Free Assange. That was the group I was affiliated with, and the wonderful efforts of Chuck and Bernadette, who I consider my friends to this day, and really wonderful human beings.
Yes, agreed.
Great. Well, I'm going to have to run.
Yeah.
But again, thanks for joining us, Misty and Paula.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Thanks, Jeremy. See you next week.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, we could go in the weeds here, but I think that I was a bit of a target too, because think about it. That happened at the most busy time. All the infiltration happened at Home Run for Julian, the October 8th event, Misty's April 11th event. They had, the guy came and was setting himself on fire with a fake tattoo about Assange. I mean, it was crazy.
Oh,
I just can't believe how many people.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to get off. 2 people are calling me. I've got some work going on.
We just keep losing Paula.
We'll have to wrap this. Well, see, I have ADHD, so
me too.
Live stream, I could probably go for 3 hours.
Me too. That's what I do. But anyways, I do want to thank you guys for having us, for being willing to air this out. Paula had a tremendous amount of difficulty getting anybody to even touch it. She sent this story to numerous journalists trying to get people to cover it. It's an incredibly important story. I think it's vital for activists to know that this happens and know how to recognize it and manage it. So it's cool that you guys were willing to touch it and have us on and talk about this.
Yeah, nobody's really talking about this anymore because he's out of prison, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the issue still stands, and look at all the freedoms that are being stripped away from people right now, especially in like the UK. I would be afraid to say anything if I was in the UK right now.
I think they were banking on us just letting it go once he was out. I think that they knew that, unfortunately, they used our our principled positions against us, knowing that we probably wouldn't air this out publicly while we were still fighting for his freedom, because that would be a tremendous detriment to his case. And I think that once he was free, I think they probably hoped that it would just go away and nobody would mention it again. But they underestimated Paula, because Paula is absolutely relentless. And we were not about to let this go.
Well, they want it to go away. They certainly do. Like, but I mean, it's an injustice of the circumstances for which he was released from prison was an injustice. Yes. Like, he had to admit that he committed a crime when all he did was do journalism.
Yeah.
Which, it's just, I mean, history will treat him kindly.
Yes.
But that's cold. That's not much comfort while you're still alive, right?
Well, and it's not much comfort to those of the rest of us that are continuing to lose those freedoms.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and now they can use that as a precedence for going after everybody else in the meantime. And that's, it creates a lot of hopelessness in you when you look at the situation. And like, the fight in front of us right now is tremendous. And I don't think these people will prevail in the long run, but I don't know how long the short run is going to be. It might outlast all of our lives. So that's frustrating, but that's the times we're in right now.
One of the things that Jeremy and I have found in doing the work that we do is that the pressure gets worse on us when something that we're reporting on is actionable. Like if there's a CIA plot exactly at that moment and we just happen to want to cover it, wow, the whole world goes crazy on us. And, many, many things happen. So I think, you were right in the kind of the center of it, which is, why they wanted to get you at that moment, in my opinion, because, that was when it was the most actionable and the stuff that you were doing was the most important. And if they could just, cut you off at the knees, they could, derail. They could derail the situation. But, they do underestimate activists. They really do. Thank God. And we, have a lot of resilience, and that's our strength there.
And Misty, you did one of the smartest things of anybody. Like, you embraced the attacks on you. Like, you called yourself Comrade Misty as Putin's buddy, and you just you owned it and went with it. And like, that's one of the things that Donald Trump does. When they attack him, he'll absorb it. He'll either ignore it and just keep moving forward, or he'll take it in. Like, he took the mugshot photo, and then they started selling
merch.
I mean, that's the way you do it. You deal with these attacks. And so I think you're a great example for what activists should do in the future when they are attacked. Don't shut down. You just go far. You push even further ahead, and you take what they threw at you and throw it back at them.
But it's not easy to do that. Misty has real inner strength. And
it's not for everybody.
And a really strong, compass.
I don't. That's kind of my superpower. I don't care.
I don't care. Whatever.
Yeah, but you're right though, Gloria. It's not for everybody,
no, and I don't fault anyone who doesn't.
No,
who can't take.
And a lot of activists are just genuinely good, kind. They really care. Yes, they're delicate, and it impacts it. I'm not gonna pretend like it didn't impact me. Of course it did. It was exhausting to be attacked every day, day in, day out, from all different directions, never really knowing who I could trust, never really knowing who was coming at me for which reasons, or who I could talk to, who I couldn't talk to. Like, all of that is really exhausting. But I tried to always just remember, this is not about me. It's not about you. Like, take yourself out of it. Take your ego out of it. It's not about you. And I think that was really key in my ability to just keep it trucking. I just took myself out of it. It was never about me.
Well, that's a good tip for everyone.
Yeah.
Very
hard to do, but that's what you have to do.
We probably should wrap this up. I'm trying to stick to a clock. I'm terrible about that.
I'm sad Paula kept getting booted out.
I know, that's so frustrating.
We see this.
She has a lot of amazing insights. So
that's frustrating. But I did go a little bit over because I knew she was breaking up in some parts. I'm going to have to do some editing around that. And
okay. Well, again, thank you.
I got enough though. I'm sure I got enough for the show.
Thank you. And let me know if you guys need anything else from me. And send it to me, and I'll blast it out on my Twitter and stuff.
No. You got
Okay,
anything else
thanks.
coming up?
No, not really. Like I said, we're dealing with, like, my father-in-law is very ill. So
Yeah,
I've kind of taken a step back from everything. But
Okay.
eventually, once that kind of gets under control, I'll probably pop back up and do shows again. But right now I'm just chilling, hanging out with the family.
Oh, so you're not
Sounds good.
okay.
Yeah, I'm not
was
really doing
talking
any
about some
shows or
activist type-
anything.
I was talking
No.
about some activist type events or something.
Oh no, I mean, I'm doing the Palestine stuff. Honestly, after Julian got free, I was very burnout.
Oh yeah.
Can
That
imagine.
consumed, and I started to dislike the person I was becoming because I was so stressed, and all of that stuff. And so I needed to, like, just chill out for a little bit. It's innate in my soul though, so I'll probably jump back in. I mean, obviously I do the Palestine stuff, but I'm not nearly as active as I should be or could be. But once Julian was
you got
free, it
Jimmy
was,
Dore. You got the Jimmy Dore experience. So,
yeah. Jimmy's cool. Jimmy lets me co-host his show or guest host his show every once in a while. He's been very kind to me over the years. So yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah, well, I mean that was a huge achievement. Well, I mean, like, 'cause
I can't
Oscar
believe
got
he
to
let me do it.
Yeah,
When he
it's
texted
awesome.
me, I was like, "Do you know who you're texting? Are you aware of who you're texting right now?" He's
Yeah.
like, "Yes." I'm like, "Oh, okay."
But
Yeah,
when
he
you
was very
when you
kind.
get that opportunity, I mean, it's you can run with it, and that's a great exposure for people. I mean,
If you
people
go
still talk
back
to
and you
Costa
watch the first time I guest hosted, for like the first 30 minutes, if you listen very closely, you might be able to hear my heart beating. I was terrified. I haven't been terrified to host a show. I've been hosting shows for years now. I haven't been afraid or nervous until then, and I was terrified.
Yeah, because
That's
it's
a
not your
major
show.
No,
It's not your show. You're
no.
being a steward for somebody else's product.
Yeah, that's a lot. And
And
it's
now it's
Jimmy
like,
fucking
if you screw up
Dore.
on your show, yeah, it's my show. I don't care. But if you're
Yeah.
screwing up in his show,
Yeah.
that's
He has a
somebody else.
huge following, millions of subscribers, and here
But-
I am. This
Yeah,
chick
but
from
people still
Ohio.
recognize
Like,
Costa from when he hosted, and that was like 2 years ago.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's how much of an impact it does have. And,
Yep.
All right. Well, let me let you
All right, guys.
go.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
So thank you so much. And everybody watching at home, thank you to you. And please like and share this video. We really appreciate it. Everything that you can do out there to help promote the show helps. And if you're in New York, definitely listen to this on the radio if you're up at 6 a.m. on Friday, because while they didn't cancel the show, they buried it at a time slot that is you don't have the most listeners there. You only get the early birds going into work on Friday. So all right. Thank you all for listening. I'm going to wrap it up. I'm Jamie Cheese Slice on behalf of Gloria and Jeremy and our guests. Thank you so much. We will see you next week.
Downtown. WBAI.